Proverbs chapter 1. I gave the title, Forsake Not the Law of Thy Mother. It's Mother's Day. I want to talk about mothers a little bit, honoring your parents. Of course, Exodus 20:12, the fifth commandment, and then the 10 commandments, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, right? That's the first commandment with promise, the Bible says. You obey that commandment, and there's a promise attached to it that you're going to live long on the earth. We'll look at that in a minute. But look at Proverbs chapter 1, starting in verse 8. Proverbs chapter 1, starting in verse 8. My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. For they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. Now look at that. It says, for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head, and chains about thy neck. Now that chains about thy neck, you can kind of look at that in two different ways. Obviously, at first it says an ornament of grace unto thy head, and then chains about thy neck. So you can kind of look at that like, royalty or whatever. They might have an ornament of grace on their head, right? They might be decked in costly array, nice chains, and what is that showing? That's showing that they kind of, that we kind of maybe put them up on a pedestal. Maybe they get a little bit more honor, a little bit more respect. They kind of got this nice jewelry, this nice headdress, right? They kind of look a little bit different. They present themselves a little bit different. And it's kind of showing, that maybe they're a little bit above other people, and we're not to put other people above other people, but you can see the symbolism here. It's a symbolism, like you have chains about your neck and you have an ornament of grace on your head. The Bible is saying that law that your mother gives you is going to end up being honor and glory unto you in the future, right? It's going to show you in a glorious light if you keep this law. But that chains about your neck, you can kind of look at that as in another way, like maybe kind of being chained up. Right? You think about chains about your neck. Maybe you think about like slaves on a ship where they got chained about their neck, right? Or maybe, that chains about your neck, you can kind of look at that in two different ways. Like Connor has a chain on today, and that's a good chain, right? It's just nice. It makes you look better. You got chains on, right? It's just, just kind of dressing yourself up, making yourself look better. But you could kind of think of that as a slave chain too, right? Kind of like a tie you down chain. And I think the Bible's talking about that in both ways, because the law of your mother can be restrictive at times, right? It can restrict you from doing the things you want to do. Like you want to go to a party, you want to go out with your friends, you want to stay out late at night, but the law of your mother says, no, you need to be home at a certain time. The law of your mother says, no, you're not going to go out with those people. You're not going to drink with those people. You're not going to do the things that the world is doing. I'm going to give you some restrictions. I'm going to put some chains on you and restrict you a little bit. But the Bible shows us that those restrictions are going to end up being a glory to us in the future. They're keeping us out of trouble. And we'll look at that more in a minute, but I think that can be looked at both in two different ways. Chains about your neck, maybe being glorifying and honoring, but also maybe being kind of restrictive. And we're going to see that in another Proverbs, that it talks about it in a different way, being more of a restrictive thing instead of a glorifying thing. But for the most part, this is really saying, if you honor the law of your mother, you're going to end up with grace and honor and glory in the future, right? These restrictive laws that keep you from doing the things you want to do now are keeping you out of trouble, or keeping you from getting the scars, or keeping you from, starting off your life in a bad way. And when you grow up with that law on your heart, and you grow up and you have honored the law of your mother, it's going to be a reward unto you in the end, right? But look at verse 10. And we're going to start to see a pattern with these Proverbs. We're going to be in Proverbs a lot, and we'll see a pattern. My son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? If they say, come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole. And as those that go down into the pit, we shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse, right? And this is how these people are. You might have these friends that want you to let's get these guys, right? It's kind of what you can kind of see the extreme example of this is kind of like a gang, right? You know how gangs are today? They're like, oh, we're a brotherhood. Let's all cast in together. We're one, man. We're blood brothers and whatever. And they're going to go around and they're going to hurt innocent people. And they're going to kill innocent people, but we're not going to turn on each other because we're brothers, right? We got each other. We've got each other's back. That's the most extreme example. But you can kind of take this into your own life. I mean, I'm not preaching to anybody in here that's going to join a gang, I don't think, at all. But, you could see this example in school. right? Maybe you're in with a crowd and they like to bully people for their own gain. They like to go around and make people, belittle people, make people look foolish and make people, and pick on them. That way it makes them look better. And they're like, hey, Connor, come bully these kids with us. Let's make ourselves look good, right? Oh, me and you, we're tight, man. Let's just go pick on these kids and we'll look better. They don't really say that stuff out loud, but that's like the end result, right? That's the goal. When you go around picking on kids, making fun of them, that goal for those bullies is to make them look better. And they may want you to do that with them. It's I'm kind of speaking in a spectrum here. That the very worst is this gang member mentality. But, you can kind of look at that in school being a bully too, right? But look at this. Because, it shows these people and like, yeah, me and you, we're together. Let's go get these other people, but me and you, we're tight. Me and you are together. We're going to put our stuff together. Let's cast in your stuff with us. We're all going to have one purse. We're all going to have the same stuff. We're all going to get along. Me and you, we're tight. I'm not going to turn on you. But look what it says. Verse 15. My son, walk not thou in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Look at verse 17. Verse 17 is key. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. This is what it's saying. It's saying if somebody's wanting to get you in and trap you or harm you or get you caught up in a trap or do something to you, they're not going to come out and tell you. Obviously, they're going to be like these people and say, hey, come with us. Cast in your lot with us. We'll all be, man, me and you are good, man. I'm not going to turn on you. You're not going to turn on me. We're going to go get these other people, right? And they're not going to come out and say, well, I will turn on you if I have to, right? They ain't going to tell you that. But just like that's what this verse 17 is saying. It's saying, birds are kind of smart creatures. And you're never going to catch a bird by putting a net out where it's visible and hoping a bird flies right into your net. Right? A bird, you're not going to show a bird a trap and hope the bird flies into your trap. And same way with us, we're smart creatures. People aren't going to say, hey, I'm trapping you, come, they're not going to show you that they're trying to trap you, right? It's going to be hidden. It's going to be something that you ain't going to see. The trap that is there waiting for you, you're not going to see it. Verse 18, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. And what this is saying is these people are out there, and when they're doing this stuff to other people, they're harming their own selves. Just like, the most extreme example, obviously, is this gang mentality, this gang violence. And they're out, they're killing others. They're willing to be shot at. They're willing to be, if they're willing to get shot at and they're willing to hurt themselves to hurt others, you think they ain't going to turn around and hurt you? If they're willing to ruin their own lives, to destroy their own lives, especially when they're going down this road, going down this path, and gang is the most extreme example. You can put this in any aspect in life today. But these people who are willing, to destroy their own lives, to make themselves look good, or they start going down this path and they realize, oh, I'm destroying my own life right now, and you're with them. You think they won't turn on you? If they're destroying their own life, they'll turn right around and destroy your life in the process as well. If they're willing to destroy their own life, they definitely would rather destroy your life before they destroy theirs, right? And that's what the Bible is saying. The Bible is saying every trap isn't out in the open. Sometimes you think these people are your friends. You think that you're all in one purse and you're all going together down the same road, but their end is destruction. And if their end is destruction, your end is definitely destruction too. And they'll turn on you quicker than you can blink, right? That's what the Bible is saying. But this goes back to the law of your mother. These restrictions, right? Don't hang out with these people. Don't go do these things. The law of your mother is there for your protection. And eventually it's going to be an honor and a glory unto you. It's not going to be shame. It's restrictive, yes, but it's going to be honor and glory unto you in the end. Look at, I did it on the back. Look at Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 20. Just a few pages over. My son, keep thy father's commandments and forsake not the law. There it is again. Forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart and tie them about thy neck. Now this is showing that restrictive pattern again, right? Tie the laws about your neck. And before it's saying that the law of your mother will be a restriction unto you, but then here it gives a little bit of a different wording. It's telling you to tie it about your neck. And what that's saying is you make some restrictions for your life. That the law of your mother can be a grace unto you and a glory unto you, right? You put these restrictions on your life yourself. You take the law of your mother that is restrictive and binding and doesn't let you do things, and you turn around and you make the law of your mother your law, right? You go ahead and as you live life, you put these restrictions on yourself. You know, perfect example, we grow up and our mom tells us to brush our teeth, to get good night's sleep, right? Get some good night's sleep. How about brush our teeth before bed? There's a perfect example, right? Brush your teeth before bed when you wake up. Now today, as an adult, my mom doesn't have to tell me to brush my teeth, right? My mom doesn't have to call me and tell me to brush my teeth anymore because I've made the law of my mother my law. This is a silly example, but it's a right example, right? My mom's law, brush your teeth before bed every night, and now I've made that my law. I don't need my mom to tell me anymore. And that's the same thing with y'all. Y'all are getting older, getting wiser, getting more independent, and all these rules and regulations that your parents had for you, they might be lightening up because you're getting older. You have cars now. You can kind of do your own thing. But before, your time out was restricted. You had to be in at a certain time. And maybe that time is getting a little more lax, as you get older. Maybe you don't have to be in at a certain time now. Maybe you've got a few more hours to spare or whatever. Your parents start to lighten up on you. But you got to remember these laws were there for a reason. And to take these laws of your parents and put them on yourself. Don't go with these certain people. Don't do these certain things. These laws were there for a reason. The Bible's telling us to restrict ourselves and to bind ourselves, tie ourselves about the neck, kind of give ourselves these restrictions. Why? Because we need them. We need to stay away from them. But look here, we're going to look at this pattern that keeps happening. Why do we need to tie them about our neck? Look at verse 22. The same pattern. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. These are the laws of your mother tied about your neck and bind it upon your heart. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. When thou awakest, it shall talk with thee, right? And this is kind of alluding to the fact that sometimes the law of your mother is the Bible. We in here, we have Christian parents, most of us, and we have our parents teaching us the Bible, and that law of your mother, she got it from the Bible. And when you awake, that same law that your mother gives you talks to you. Why? Because the Bible speaks to us, right? And it's kind of a point back to that, but look at verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light. Not just the law of your mother, but the Bible, but as well. And reproofs of instruction are the way of life, right? So reproofs and what is a reproof? Somebody getting on you for doing something wrong, right? Somebody saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to be doing this right now instead. Your parents mainly, right? That's a lot of we get from our parents is a lot of reproof, but also a lot of instruction. Why? Because it's the way of life. But what's the opposite of the way of life? The way of death. We're going to see that in a minute, that not honoring our parents, cursing our parents, not having these restrictions on our life, not listening to the law of our mother, it will lead us to death. We'll see that here in just a minute. But look at verse 24. What all these things are for, these reproofs, this instruction, the law of your mother, binding it upon your heart. This is for one thing, verse 24, to keep thee from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Lust not after her beauty in thine heart. Neither let her take thee with her eyelids. For by means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. You're looking at a path to destruction by not listening to the law of your mother. Like men, for example, your mom telling you, hey, that's not a good girl. Don't be dating that girl. I can already see, she's not good for you. She's, her end is the ways of destruction. By the means of a whorish woman, a man is brought to a piece of bread. What that's saying is you get these women like this, they'll take you down to nothing, and all you'll have left is a piece of bread, the Bible is saying. It's just a destitute way of life, but women the same way. Girl, you can just put a man in this spot right here, and it'd be the same thing for you, right? The man that comes and flatters with his words, like, oh, you're special. You're the only one, Peyton. I don't like any other. I love you. And, all this stuff, right? You have this man doing the same thing, right? Don't be flattered with these men. Don't be flattered with these women that want to lead you down a path of destruction, right? These laws, these commandments, these rules, maybe your father tells you, hey, nah, that's not a good guy. Stay away from him. Connor, that's not a good girl. Your mother, that's not a good girl. Stay away from her, right? Your parents know. Your parents have lived life, and we as children, I remember being a child and thinking, my parents don't know nothing. They don't know anything, but they've lived a life. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Life doesn't change. Yeah, styles change, and technology changes, and different things change around the world, but life, for the most part, the way we interact, the way we talk, the way we act about things does not change. And your parents know a thing or two because they've lived through life. They understand a few things. Listen to their law, because in the end, it'll be a glory unto you. But if you don't listen, it's going to be a shame, and it can lead to your death. Look at Proverbs chapter 10. And that's a theme we keep seeing over and over. Listening to the law of your mother is glory, but dishonoring your parents leads to a life of shame and a life of death. But look at Proverbs chapter 10. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish son is the heaviness of his mother. Treasures of the wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness delivereth from death. The Lord will not suffer the soul of the righteous to famish, but he casteth away the substance of the wicked. And what this is saying here, not only are these laws of your mother good for you just to keep you away from the horsewoman, or to keep you away from those friends that want to hurt you, or just to keep you out of bad situations in general, but the Bible's saying here that God will reward you for honoring your parents. Just beside the fact that it's a good idea to listen to their laws and their instructions because it's going to keep you down the right path, just beside all that, the Lord's going to bless you anyways for doing what he says to do, right? The Bible says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken nor his seed begging bread. And you live a righteous life and a holy life unto the Lord, you're not going to find yourself in a position where you're needing food and water and clothing and things like that. You never will, the Bible says. But if you dishonor the law of your mother, if you dishonor your father, if this fool, the Bible says, is the heaviness of his mother, because, this fool didn't listen to the law of his mother. He's out there in the world now. He's struggling for food. He's struggling for water. His friends have forsaken him and tried to kill him. This horsewoman has taken everything from him, and now he has nothing left. And his mother's sad. And not only is it going to cause you to have a horrible life, you're going to bring dishonor to your parents. Your mom's going to be heartbroken over the fact that her son or her daughter is out there living this life. And they can't do nothing about it because you won't listen. Because you didn't listen to the law of your mother, right? Look at Proverbs chapter 15. I can't remember what verse that is because it's verse 15, 20... 20. Yeah, it's verse 20. Okay, the zero got cut off. Look at chapter 15, verse 20. A wise son maketh a glad father, but a foolish man despiseth his mother. Folly is joy to him that is destitute of wisdom. That's an interesting phrase right there. Folly is joy to those that are destitute of wisdom. What is, I don't know if you, maybe I might be showing my age a little bit, but who is the most famous rapper of all time? Does anybody know that answer? Who's the most famous rapper ever? Eminem. Is he not? He's not the most famous. Amos said he's not the most famous. I guess I thought he was. I don't know if he is or not. I have no idea. I assume he is. In my generation, he was the most famous rapper ever. And the thing about it is, though, is his lyrics are so vulgar and so disgusting. But look what the Bible says. Folly is joy to them that is destitute of wisdom. And folly is just disgusting, the filth, the vulgar, right? The blasphemy. And no doubt, the reason he is the most famous rapper of all time is because his lyrics are just so full of trash and smut and filth. And the world just loves this stuff. It eats it up. I know you guys don't know this answer, but the most famous talk radio show host of all time. Did anybody give me that answer? That's really showing my age now. Howard Stern. Anybody heard of Howard Stern? The dude with the long hair and the sunglasses? Just pure smut and filth. Right? And his whole show is literally like making fun of disabled people. That's his whole entire show. Most famous talk show host of all time. Why? Because it's just pure smut, pure filth, just pure wickedness and blasphemy and just disgusting, raunchy behavior. But why? Folly is joy to those that are destitute of wisdom. The world is unwise. Why? Because wisdom is found in the Lord. But the world doesn't have the wisdom of the Lord. So all this folly, all this smut, all this filth, it's a joy unto them. They love it. They eat it up. It makes them feel good. Why? Because they're destitute of wisdom. That's why. The most famous podcaster of all time. I know we know this answer. Who's the most famous podcaster of all time? I know Samuel's about to say it. Who is it? Joe Rogan. Exactly. Joe Rogan, most famous podcaster of all time, right? But and if people say, well, oh, he's been coming to Jesus lately. Well, we can talk about that another time, maybe not. But this guy's rise to fame had nothing to do with Jesus. He's literally blaspheming the entire time, about blaspheming Jesus, making fun of the story. But who believes something like that? That's so stupid. And his whole thing was literally taking steroids and drugs. Right? Let's go take all the... Well, I don't know about the steroids necessarily. That's what I hear. I'm not sure. But I do know he always talks about, let's go to the desert and lick toads and take LSD, and we go into these other dimensions and we visit these beings and they talk to me. And he's literally saying, he still says this stuff to this day. Joe Rogan, the most famous podcaster of all time. Think about that. Why? Is that not folly? Literally going to the desert and licking a toad to visit other gods in other dimensions. That's folly if I've ever heard the word. Why? Because folly is joy to those that are destitute of wisdom. And people think Joe Rogan's so wise, because he talks to all these different people and he has all these different thoughts and he questions everything. But what did Solomon say? Solomon was the smartest guy to ever live, right? And he remember in Ecclesiastes, he said, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. He talked about how he learned all the things about animals and he read all the books and he learned everything he could learn and understood everything he could understand. He said it was all meaningless. It was all pointless. And Joe Rogan's kind of down the same path. You're trying to learn everything he can learn, but he has no godly wisdom behind him. So it's all just folly and foolishness. It's not going to get him anywhere. Learning about all the government stuff and all the politics and what all these animals do and all these UFC, whatever. Learning all these things ain't going to get you nowhere, just like Solomon said. It's the wisdom of the Lord is what's going to get you to heaven. You can learn everything you need to know in this life and learn it all. But if you don't go to heaven, it was all meaningless. It was all vanity, right? But folly is a joy to those that are destitute of wisdom. And that's so clear today because everything that is the most popular is full of smut and filth and it's just wickedness, isn't it? It's pure folly. Verse 3, finish verse 2, but a man of understanding walketh uprightly. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors they are established. Proverbs 15. We're not still there? Did I move on?
Proverbs 15, 2. I don't think so.
22, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say.
We were at 20 and then 21 and 22. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. 22. All right. But the Bible's saying, having a lot of good counsel around you is good. And the counsel of your mother especially, right? Look at Psalm chapter 1, verse 1. Right back to the basics. Psalm, you don't have to turn now, I'll read it for you. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord. And in his law doth he meditate day and night, right? But with the delight of the world, the delight of the unwise is folly and foolishness. Joy, it's joy. It brings them joy. But what brings us joy? What brings those of wisdom joy? The law of the Lord. And a lot of times you get the law of the Lord from the law of your mother. Proverbs 19:26 says this, he that wasteth his father and chaseth away his mother is a son that causeth shame and bringeth reproach. He that wasteth his father. What that's saying is don't waste what your parents are giving you as you grow up, right? Your parents are giving you good, sound advice because they've lived a life before. And their parents gave them good advice. And hopefully all that advice is building and getting better and not getting worse. And we're humans and we make mistakes and your parents will make mistakes. But a lot of their advice is good, sound advice. They're giving this to you for a reason. They want to see you succeed in life, right? And don't waste what your parents are giving you because it's going to cause you to be a shame. It's going to cause you to be a reproach. Proverbs 20:20, whoso curseth his father or his mother, his lamp shall be put out in obscure darkness. What do you think that means? Put out in obscure darkness. It means you'll die. It means you'll die. Look at Exodus 20, or you don't have to look there. Exodus 21:17 says, "And he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death." Now that was a law in the Old Testament. And people say, well, yeah, but that was the Old Testament though. That's not today. That was back then. Well, Matthew 15, Jesus Christ, this is the words of Jesus Christ himself in Matthew 15. This is New Testament and Jesus Christ speaking. "Honor thy father and thy mother, and he that curseth the father or mother, let him die the death." Jesus in the New Testament. So it's not just an Old Testament thing. It's a New Testament thing. And you say this, you say, well, these are laws and the government was to put them to death, and nobody's going to do that today. No country is going to do this today. No government. And you're right. We're not going to see any country today acting like this or doing anything like this. But God thought this was a rule. God thought this was a good law. God thought this was a good idea. You think he won't enforce it? People die untimely every day. And we'll see this in a minute. I'm not saying you're going to die untimely for forsaking the law of your mother, but you can. It's an end. You take this too far, and in the end thereof are the ways of death. Living this life leads to death. We're going to see that here in a minute, and we're going to look at this generation. Let's look at this. Let me skip all that. Look at Proverbs chapter 30 with me, though. And I want to skip ahead real quick because I'm running out of time. Proverbs chapter 30. I want to show you the end thereof. When you're not obeying the law of the law of your mother, right? Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land. The opposite of that is you dishonor your parents, and your days are going to be short. Look at Proverbs 30, verse 17. "The eye that mocketh at his father and despiseth to obey his mother, the ravens of the valley shall pick it out, and the young eagles shall eat it." Now, think about this for a minute. How could you get into a position where when you die, there's birds eating out your eyes? There's really only one way, and that's an untimely death. I don't know why birds go for the eyes first. That must be a delicacy for birds. I have no idea. But literally, if you think about this, you're thinking about a body, right, out in a field, laying out there, and birds coming and picking the eyes out because this guy died with nobody around. This isn't a person that's dying of old age in hospice with his family and friends around him. When a grandpa dies in hospice, the birds don't come and pluck their eyes out. This is clearly an untimely death of somebody who's died. I don't know. They could have been out walking in the wilderness and having a heart attack. Somebody could have killed them and dumped their body in a field. I don't know however they got to where they're at, to where a bird is eating out their eyes. It's no doubt an untimely death, meaning a death before their time. They didn't die in the hospital of cancer. They didn't know it was coming. They didn't die of old age in hospice. They didn't die at their home with their friends and family surrounding them, knowing death was coming. It just came out of nowhere. It came suddenly, right? It came swiftly. But how does this happen? Look at verse 11. Go back up to verse 11 and let's see what leads up to this death. Look at verse 11. "There is a generation that curseth their father and doth not bless their mother." And we are in that generation today. We are in that generation. Look at verse 12. "There is a generation that are pure in their own eyes, and yet is not washed from their filthiness." And then that's not the generation today. Everything they're doing is pure in their own eyes. Oh, I'm not hurting nobody. Me sleeping around ain't bothering anybody. I can do whatever I want to do. Me being a homo ain't hurting nobody. Me living my life, not going to church, that ain't hurting none of you. I'm pure. I'm not doing anything wrong. I ain't hurting anybody. That's this generation today. Verse 13, this is a generation. Oh, how lofty are their eyes, and their eyelids are lifted up, right? And ain't this generation just so proud of themselves today? It's just this social media generation. Oh, look at me. Look at everything I got. Look what I'm doing. Look how good I am. Look how fancy my home is. Look how many cars I have, right? That's the generation today we're living in. This Proverbs is describing this generation. "There is a generation whose teeth are as swords. Their jaw teeth are as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth and the needy from among men." And I want to skip ahead because, I'm going to skip the next few verses, but eventually it says, "The eye that mocketh his father and despiseth to obey his mother, the ravens of the valley shall pick it out, and the young eagle shall eat it." No doubt talking about an untimely death, right? It's talking about an untimely death. And let me read you some statistics about America today. Now, I looked up, are untimely deaths on the rise? And this is what I Googled, and let me show you the results. Let me just read this for you. Because this is interesting, because Proverbs 30 describes this generation we're living in now. And what's the Bible say the end of that is? Sudden death, sure death, quick death, not a death surrounded by your friends and family and loved ones, but a death where you're out in the field by yourself and birds are picking out your eyes, an untimely death. I asked this question, are untimely deaths on the rise? And this is the answer. Recent data suggests that untimely deaths, including sudden and unexpected deaths, are indeed on the rise in certain contexts, though the picture varies by cause and region. In the United States, all-cause mortality rates remain above pre-pandemic levels. That's interesting. Provisional 2024 data shows age-adjusted mortality rates still elevated compared to 2018, with COVID-19 deaths dropping from the third leading cause in 2021 to the 15th in 2024. However, excess deaths, those above expected rates based on historical or comparable country data, have surged. They've surged. I mean, we're talking a pandemic. I mean, we're in a pandemic of people not honoring their parents. These untimely deaths, I mean, this is a surge today in America. Let me finish this real quick. Because they thought COVID-19 was bad. These untimely deaths are on the rise since 2019 or since COVID. Why? Why is untimely sudden deaths on the rise? It's almost like the Bible knows what it's talking about, doesn't it? It's weird. Between the 2019 and 2021, excess deaths in the U.S. increased by about 85%, far outpacing similar high-income countries based on Science Alert. This suggests that even after pandemic-related spikes, the U.S. still experiences higher than unexpected mortality. Why? Sudden deaths, often considered untimely, have also shown concerning trends. In India, the National Crime Records Bureau reported a 12% increase in sudden deaths in 2022, with heart attacks being the leading cause, according to Medenta. Lifestyle factors such as poor diet, sedentary behavior, and chronic stress are linked to this rise. But why the increase matters? Look at this, life expectancy trends. Since the mid-1970s, U.S. life expectancy has fallen behind many other wealthy nations, despite advanced medical technology. And I'm not going to keep going on and on. It's just saying the same things over and over. Despite our advanced medical technology and despite the COVID pandemic. Well, I mean, COVID killed all kinds of people, right? Apparently. But we're in a way worse pandemic where people are just dying, just suddenly dying. Why do you think that is? I tell you why it is. It's Proverbs chapter 30 is the answer. Because people have quit honoring their parents. We're in the generation where people don't honor their parents anymore. They have forsaken the law of their mother, and like God said, you will die an untimely death. And you think God is not going to carry out His judgment, He will. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. You all probably honor your parents really well. I'm not saying you don't, but we need to remember these things and keep these things in our heart, right? Keep the law of our mother in our heart. Let it be a restriction unto us to keep us from doing the things that lead us to these untimely deaths. And class is dismissed.